Welcome back to the Sports Marketeer podcast. I'm your host, Amar Singh, and I've got a very special guest today, someone who I've been trying to get onto the podcast for a while, and I'm really delighted that she's here. Louise Becker has spent 15 years with Carlsberg, working across their portfolio of sponsorship assets, including UEFA Euros, the Premier League at times, Arsenal, I believe, at times as well. But today we really want to talk about the long-standing partnership between Carlsberg and Liverpool FC, which began in 1992, coinciding with the launch of the Premier League. So really was an incredible time to have these two brands coming together. Louise, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on. And I know that you're very, very busy. And I know that it's been a busy couple of weeks for good reason for you. And we're going to get into that. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
No, of course.
So when did this podcast find you today?
I am actually on a vacation with my family. So we're in our beach house in the northern part of Zealand in Denmark. So we're just chilling and hanging out.
Sounds beautiful. Thank you for taking an interlude from your vacation to speak to me. I appreciate that.
We all need a break from family once in a while, right? So
great. So Louise, I want to talk to you a little bit about the connection between Carlsberg and Liverpool. If we can go back to the beginning, you obviously weren't there when that partnership was coming together. You're way too young for that. However, how much of the history of that association are you aware of? How much have you learned through your role, and how did these two iconic brands, if you like, come together?
Yeah, no, I think so. Back in 1992, it was actually my former boss, Carlsberg, who started the whole partnership, and he was really tasked with looking at something that could make Carlsberg famous, something that could make the brand Carlsberg travel throughout the world, specifically in the areas where Carlsberg exists. So that's mainly in Europe and in Asia. The football is a massive deal all over the world. We have been in football since the 1970s. We started as one of the first commercial partners of the Danish national team in 78. So I think progressing into a big global club like Liverpool was a natural next step, because it really was this fame driver. How can we attach Carlsberg to a brand that is global and that really touches our consumers in a way that's relevant both to Carlsberg and to Liverpool as well? So it was about going bigger and going more global.
That's fantastic, and it makes so much sense, and it feels like such a natural partnership now. At the time, how important was it that there was this connection between the club and Scandinavia? Would this partnership have happened if Jan Molby didn't exist, for example?
Oh, I would like to say it would, but obviously if you look at Scandinavia, back in the 70s, there was like one sports program. On the Saturday, they would show one game from the Premier League. And because Liverpool was winning at the time, that was usually one of they would show their games. So if you look to Denmark, to Norway, to Sweden, everyone has had a player play for Liverpool back in that time. So I think that was a natural surge in the interest for Scandinavia and Liverpool. So I would say that it probably would have existed without Jan Mølby, but I mean, what would the world be like without Jan Mølby, right? It wouldn't be a fun world.
It doesn't bear thinking, frankly. As someone whose playing style I've tried to base my playing style on. Not having to run too much, passing the ball around, not having to run too much, but with a fraction of the talent. So absolutely. I mean, I love the fact that Liverpool has this, and I'm obviously a Liverpool fan, and for people watching this on video will see that I'm wearing a shirt with Carlsberg on it as well, from the 90s. Those vintage Carlsberg era shirts, they're really highly sought after, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Why do you think that is? Is it purely nostalgia, or does it align to a time when football was different?
I think we were on the shirt for 18 years. It's an iconic partnership, and I think what we're trying to do with all our partnership, you'll see we really try to be there for a long time. We really believe that a partnership like this, it develops and it matures over time. So you need to give it time to live. I personally think so. I'm actually not a big football fan, but I'm a big sports fan. And I think there's one thing sports fans, they value, it's loyalty, whether that be from the players, from the clubs, from partners. So I think because we were on the shirt for that long and we've had some iconic moments when we were on the shirt, I think there's just a lot of affinity between the fans and Carlsberg. And then the designs, I mean, both both Reebok and Adidas made some beautiful designs, also some crazy ones, but they're now the ones that are becoming even more popular. And I think you see football shirts as part of fashion. It's very culturally relevant. You see it on the runway in Paris. You see it on people who have nothing to do with football. They wear it as a fashion statement. So I think it has a big surge right now, these retro shirts. And then we're happy to be part of that and playing a big part of that very culturally relevant moment.
Yeah. And obviously being on the shirt for that long gave so much awareness for the brand, really helped drive that salience, connecting Carlsberg with the occasion of football, driving the connection with the club and all its values as well, which I think was great. But then coming off the shirt, what does that mean? How do your goals evolve, in partnerships when you come off the shirt? Does it mean more innovation? Does it mean having to work harder? How did you guys pivot at the time?
Well, I think first of all, we came off the shirts for various reasons. And one of them was also the front of shirt, I think, is a great awareness driver. You are right there in the middle of everything. You are on every single shot. Every time there's a game, you are there. And the proximity you have to the players is really important. Now, we're an alcohol brand. We have to be extremely self-regulatory in how we carry ourselves because we have a big responsibility to do responsible marketing. And I think when you're on the shirt, you are very close to the players. You're very close to the heroes of the young. At the time, we were part of the Portman Group in the UK, and there was a very clear steer that alcohol doesn't necessarily belong on the players. That's not to say that we can't be involved in football, but we have to find different ways to do it in a responsible way. So yeah, we had to pivot. And I think it actually took us a while to find out where we pivot to, being still involved with the club, but coming off that iconic placement on the shirt. But I think, to be honest, it forced us to be more creative. It forced us, as you say, it brings in more innovation because you don't get that. And I'm not going to call it free of charge. It's obviously a pretty big charge you put on that front of shirt sponsorship, but that always on where you're on the shirt. So it has been a good exercise for us, really. And you will see other clubs where we've been on the shirt, we're actually coming off the shirts everywhere. We recently came off the front of shirt of FC Copenhagen. We're now on the sleeve. We've come off the front of shirts simply because partly due to the responsibility we have as an alcohol brand.
Yeah. That responsible marketing element is intrinsic when you work in a brewing company. Would you say it's a growing focus of your role?
100%. We are making commitments, our external commitments to how we use our sponsorships. We need to be very clear on the messaging we put even on the boards. We have to be careful of how we use the players. You will see with Liverpool, we have one of our big assets is the player of the match. When that goes out in social, if it's a player that's under 21, there's no Carlsberg branding on it because we just want to take that very seriously. Yeah, it's something we also think about it when we do contracts. We think about how can we make this part of the sponsorship really live, because that's such a big part of who we are. And I think, to be honest, that our partners appreciate that as well, that we're coming in with a responsible drinking strategy as well.
Yeah. And if the player of the match happens to be the most famous Muslim footballer on the planet and the unquestionable star of the team, how does Carlsberg work around that and respect that?
We don't put Carlsberg branding on Mo. We don't use them in any comms. I always say to the team, and we say that to the club as well, we respect human beings. That has to be our starting point. We respect whoever you are and what you want to do. We respect that. So no, we would never put that on most player of the match award. And as you say, he wins them quite a lot. But I actually think, I think, was it a year and a half ago, it started circling in these fan forums that they had noticed that Carlsberg was not present when Mo was the player of the match. And we actually got a lot of credit from the fans for taking that stance to say, we are going to be respectful of Mo. He is obviously a superstar and phenomenal football player, but we are actually going to draw that line right here because that's not our place. That's not why we are here. We're not here to stick a logo on Mo Salah. We are here to be part of a football club that has values that align very well to ours and to be here with the fans. So it's a very easy decision for us, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. And the flip side of that, of course, is what we saw earlier this week. And I shared it with you on social and you also posted it on your LinkedIn. But it was Alisson enjoying a Carlsberg, putting it to the camera. I mean, that's not something you have to engineer, right?
No, we operate under a motto saying luck favors the brave. So you have to be a little brave to get lucky. And of course, we make sure that the products are available in the dressing room. Would we ever force anyone to take a beer? No. They are athletes. We respect that. We only put it in those big celebratory moments. And you know what? Alisson got us a little bit lucky. And it's a great, as a brand, I think you want to be part of these big moments. You want to be part of the celebrations. And I think for us, we were there, brand in hand, with one of the best goalkeepers, if not the best goalkeeper in the world right now, who was just crowned Premier League champion. That is something, you can't buy it. There was a lot of talk about the Google Pixel with Mo Salah when he scored a goal. And that's the same. You can plan to be lucky, but you need a little bit of luck. It's the same with your perimeter board. You need to be lucky that if something great happens when your perimeter board is on, you can only plan for it, but you have to be lucky. So you have to put yourself out there and you have to take that risk. Yeah. Because it could have been that no one picked up a beer in the dressing room and we wouldn't have been featured, but that's not the point. The point is that we do it because, one, we think it's the right thing to do. We want to be there with the players when they celebrate. And if we get lucky, we pat ourselves on the back and said, not even well done, because we didn't do much, but we got lucky.
Yeah, no, it was a fantastic moment. I think that celebration moment is such a big moment for a beer partner, isn't it? And I think putting yourself at the heart of that is so important. What I also wanted to ask you about was, over the years since coming off the shirt, you did mention that you've had to be more innovative, you've had to be more risky, more daring, and work very closely with the club. There's been some great campaigns over the years. I was doing some research earlier this week, and I was looking at the when you turned Carlsberg Liverpool red, and you got a lot of praise for that, didn't you, at the time?
Yeah, we did. It's also, it's quite nerve-wracking to take your entire iconography and your entire brand and switching it to red. But you know what? I think we did it again. We wanted to be a little bit brave. We wanted to push the boundaries, and we also wanted to play into this narrative that we're here to stay. We are here because we are great friends of Liverpool, and that's what you do for friends. You turn your brand around for a friend for a moment of time. And I think that's actually my favorite campaign we've done, is the red barley, because we managed to make a beer that everyone talked about. So fans talked about it. We had the marketing community talked about it. We even went into a New York Times F&B section because they wanted to talk about the red barley that we had used for the beer. So getting into various different publications in very different areas, I think just showed that this was something unique that we did. So it's my favorite thing I think I have done in Carlsberg is actually that red barley campaign. It was also the start of kind of a change of how we saw our partnership and how we activated the partnership. So you will have seen that since then, we have done more and more where we are doing limited edition cans that we know the fans really want to collect. We obviously jumped on the Champions League moment back in 2020, Premier League moment back in 2020 during COVID. What could we do to be part of that? Well, we made a Champions can that got sold all over the world. And we had a chance to celebrate with the fans, like brand in hand. That's quite unique. And we obviously have an advantage here that we are a beer brand. And for some fans, beer fits very well with football. So we obviously tap into that connection.
Definitely. Beer and football, like you say, it goes hand in hand. There are some really long-standing partnerships out there. And I think the length of that association between Carlsberg and Liverpool means you can tap into nostalgia. You can do cans based on some of those iconic kits, which I loved. That was another really well celebrated campaign, and the fans just really loved that. And then also the Miracle of Istanbul can, which is the latest one you've done for the anniversary of Istanbul. How do you guys test whether this is going to land well with the fans? Is this something you have a great instinct for? Do you work closely with the club on this? Do you just know?
I think honestly, it's a little bit of everything, but most importantly, we listen to the club. I think as a partner, if you don't listen to the rights holder, I'm not going to say you're a fool, but you're missing out, because we might know our consumers, but Liverpool, they know their fan base. They can tap into research that we don't have. They can tap into fan focus groups that we don't have. So we do a lot of work with the club in anything that we do, and we listen to them. We have also brought ideas to the club. They have said, we're not sure this is going to work. And then we bin it. So we listen very closely to the club. And then, to be honest, we have a lot of Liverpool fans internally. And my team, we will always sense check a little bit with the internal Liverpool fans, because we have them all over the world, right? So we have our colleagues in Asia who are Liverpool fans. We have them in Southern Europe. We have them in Scandinavia. So we sense check a little bit internally as well. But most importantly, we work with the club in anything that we do.
And that perhaps is more valuable to you than having a big data set to draw on, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the club draws on a big piece of data. So we get it from both sides, and we have our own data as well that we of course tap into. But I really believe that this is a partnership. it's right there in the word. We have to work together. We are partners, and Liverpool when we do something, they want it to be good because it's their neck on the line as well. Their brand is part of it as well. And we of course want to do something good for us. So it really has to be that partnership. And we haven't gotten it right every time, to be honest. We haven't. And it's always hard when you have two brands that needs to come together and do something that works for both in terms of tone of voice and the audience that you speak to. But I think because we are rooted in some really core values that align on both sides, I think it's easier for us to get to that point where we can do something together. But I think that's the hardest part in working in sponsorship, is that you have different brands that you need to work together. Because if it's not authentic, I mean, you're a football fan. Football fans, they're ruthless. They will call it out right away if it's not authentic.
100%. And one of my pet hates is, and you know, this happened sometimes when I was working previously at Budweiser, and sometimes if an agency is pitching an idea to you, you can immediately tell if they understand the culture and if they understand fandom and if they understand the club, because people, you know, if you get it wrong, you can see it straight away.
And I think to your point, you know, we obviously work with a lot of agencies and they're all great, but we always want to make sure that I like it when there's a football fan in there, because it doesn't matter what football fan you are, if you're a Man United fan or you're a Inter Miami fan, but a football fan who just gets that sensitivity around being authentic. I think we really try to start there. It has to be authentic for both of us, for both sides. It has to be authentic for Carlsberg and it has to be authentic for Liverpool. If we try to force fit it, as you say, fans are going to call it out immediately.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of respect between the partners at the club, but I would love to get your thoughts on that Google Pixel moment. You did mention it, and it did cause a bit of a debate, particularly from a lot of marketing professionals and sponsorship people on LinkedIn in particular. My view on it was, I thought it was very clever, and I didn't feel like it was too intrusive. And I was so happy that Liverpool had won the league. I didn't really care whether they were working with a partner or not. You know, as a fan. And then as a professional, I was like, well, that's pretty clever. But I know a lot of people felt it was too intrusive.
Yeah, and I honestly, I see both sides. I really do. I think you have to put everything into context. And the context here was that Liverpool had won the Premier League. You know, you don't do this if you are 16th and you've had a really, really terrible season.
Yeah.
You don't do this. You do this because you're riding on a high.
Yeah.
I think Google has done a great job. And this is not the first time. I think people sometimes forget that. But this is not the first time Google has done this, because I think it was last year they did something where Virgil van Dijk celebrated a goal and he took the phone into the celebration on the pitch with the players, like in the corner. So it's not the first time. So this is what they do, and they do it very, very, very well. I think it caused a lot of stir, as you say, on social media, and I think sometimes a little bit of jealousy. Why didn't we come up with something like that? Why didn't we do something? But I think there's a role to play for every single brand. That was right for Google Pixel. That was right for them. Would we have had someone give him a alcohol-free beer on the sideline? No, because that's not right for us. So I see both sides. I see that, you know, you want to keep the sport clean and you want to keep football clean on the pitch. Everything that's on the pitch is the football. That's the sacred part of it. But I think this was, don't forget, Mo Salah doesn't do anything Mo Salah doesn't want to do. So this was a spur of the moment. This was an instinct, I think, that happened. And yes, then the club, this is the media team at the club as well. And the partner has been great, putting people on the sidelines with the phones.
Yeah.
So if something happens, they are there. Again, you gotta be brave to be lucky.
Yep. It's clever marketing. And the other thing is, it didn't feel inauthentic in the way that Salah's been taking selfies all season. After every game, he's taken a selfie with the goal scorers of the day.
Yeah.
So it just felt like an extension of that.
What I loved was what a lot of people didn't realize, that after the game, Mo Salah recreated it with a different phone.
He did. That's true.
And that photo has now been all over the media as well. I'm like, well, shouldn't we give credit to Google because it was actually their moment? Obviously, because something similar happened and that's the photo that's being circulated, not giving the credit to Google, who did a great job. Again, I think if you can be a little bit brave, you will get lucky once in a while. But don't forget, Google Pixel probably have people standing with the phones every single game for 2 seasons. So they got lucky here, and it was a great talked about moment. And yeah, as you say, it's clever for them. It worked for them. I don't think all brands could have done something like that, but it worked for them right there.
Yeah. And I think ultimately it will come down to whether they were able to sell more Google Pixel phones.
Yeah. And that's that's the point. I mean, you'll know this, but working in sponsorship, it's so difficult, right? 'Cause, oh yeah, this happens. Now we're going to sell a lot more of our products. It could also be a million other factors that went into that. So it's hard to do the correlation.
Yeah. How much of your role is linked to sales?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, everyone who works for Carlsberg, we are there to sell beer. We are there to drive the business forward. So when we look at activations or we look at contracts, we always factor in how much volume can this drive in various ways. So if when we do a sponsorship like Liverpool, obviously we sell our beers at the stadium as well. But also, what can we do with limited editions? How can we create incremental sales based on this? So it is a big part. Of course, at the end of the day, that's our business. We sell beer. It's the only way we became a profitable company. Yeah, we look at that and we put it into the evaluation as well. When we're looking at new partners, we look into what type of volumes do we think this partnership can actually bring?
Yeah.
It's a big part.
Yeah, the commercial reality, and I think the best sponsorship professionals are fully aware and cognizant of. Ultimately, it's about selling the product. Is it getting harder to do that, though, with some of the trends that are shaping the world? So that could be Gen Z drinking less, those new guidelines and barriers in sponsorship, of course. We know people don't go out as much as they used to, sadly. Is this an existential time for beer companies in a way?
You know what? I think it's an existential time for a lot of categories. The world is changing and we have to change with them. For us specifically, that means we're looking at new categories. It's health and well-being. Is it low alcohol beers? What can we do in that space? So looking at new categories is one thing. And then the other thing is how can we, as I said, promote this responsible drinking that you can still go out and have a beer or two, that's still okay, living in this new world that we're living in. So that's another part, doing this responsible. And then I think the last part is loneliness plays a big part right now in the world in general, and not saying that people should come together over beer, but can we be a connector? Can we be someone who facilitates relationships and togetherness? So I think you have to look at the world where you are. And right now, this is where we are. So we need to look at new categories. We need to showcase that we are responsible in what we do. And then how can we can't solve the world. At the end of the day, we sell beer. Let's not pretend like we are doing massive things to save the world. What can we do to play our part in this? And can we bring people together? Can we give people access to something that they don't have access to right now? Could it be a football fan that has never gone to Anfield? Can we help that? So we try to play our role, and we are very much aware that this is a tiny role that we play in the bigger world, but we have a responsibility to play the role that we have.
Yeah, it's super important. And I think when you talk about loneliness and isolation, that is a real challenge, particularly for your on-trade partners as well, right? You must have some really good relationships with on-trade partners in the UK and beyond. How do you guys work with them to ensure that the football occasion, because let's be watching football in pubs as well now. How do you work with those to enhance the occasion of enjoying football at the pub with your friends?
Well, that's where we're trying to work. We work on, I want to say, through the line activations. So we want to make sure that every time we do something, we also think about the pub. How can this come to life in a pub? How can we drive footfall into a pub? So everything that we do, we have to look at both on-trade and off-trade. And yes, some activations, we are more geared towards the off-trade, but everything that we do, we try to look at an off-trade as well. And I mean, you just alluded to it. A lot of pubs are closing down in the UK. The on-trade is struggling. People don't go out as much. So we have to make sure that any partnership that we have, we can drive a footfall into the on-trade. And that can be with activations. It can be with right now I've just came back from Vietnam, where we bring legends all over the world into our customers, into the off-trade, again, to drive footfall in. So we can use some of the assets that we have to drive people back to the pubs. We can do promotions where you have an opportunity to win a signed shirt, for example. It's very, very low practicality, but it works because we know we can drive that footfall back into the pub and create that community that football really is, right? It is a community. So if we can help facilitate that community, then, we've done something right.
Yeah. Great use of your assets, as you say, and working with legends is brilliant for that. Liverpool has plenty. Who have you enjoyed working with at Liverpool, legends-wise?
Oh, there are so many, and they all bring something different. So we have worked, in the past couple of years, we worked a lot with Sami Hyypiä, Robbie Fowler, David James, Vladdy Schmitzer, Patrick Berger, John Aldridge, and they all just bring themselves, which I think is so unique because we can take Robbie Fowler to Canada, and then he's going to Australia next week for us. And he will be exactly who Robbie Fowler is. It doesn't matter where he is in the world. And that's what I think fans outside the UK, what they want to experience is Liverpool. They want to experience Anfield and Liverpool and the community around Liverpool. So when we take legends in, we want them to be exactly who they are. We're not asking them to put on a persona they're not. We're asking them to show up, be themselves, say a cheers to the fans, and just have a conversation. I think if you're a football fan, you love to talk football with a legend because you can ask all the questions that you probably heard before, but you can ask them yourself. So we love working with all of them. I have to say they are brilliant, and we're using them more and more and more also because of this. We're trying to not distance ourselves from the current players, but again, being very respectful that they are, working athletes. So the legends, on the other hand, we can use them in very different ways, and we can get them a little bit closer to our product. We can get them a little bit closer to the fans because we can take them everywhere. So we use a lot of legends, to be honest. I think only this year we've done something in China, in Hong Kong, Australia, Vietnam, Norway, Denmark, Germany. So we take them all over the world. And to be fair, I think they like it as well.
Yeah.
I think they get to be a footballer again. They get to be a superstar again because you have fans sleeping outside the hotel because they want to meet the legends.
Yeah.
You have them queuing up to get an autograph. They make signs with their names on. So it's quite unique to see, I have to say. And I always get surprised, no matter where we go in the world, there's a Liverpool fan right there. Yeah. No matter where you are. It to me is like the biggest community in the world. No matter where you go, there's a Liverpool fan.
That's true. I mean, wherever I am, if I'm traveling for work or with family and there's a Liverpool game on, it's it's never difficult to find somewhere showing the game. It's usually find an Irish pub and there's usually a Liverpool fan behind the bar who's making sure the Liverpool game is on. But that's great. You're working with Robbie Fowler because, obviously his nickname with the Liverpool fans is God, and if he's everywhere, then that's great because, that's how it should be. Brilliant. And of course, 0% has become such an important element of beer marketing over the last sort of 5 to 10 years, I'd say. And the product innovation at the center of it is great. The products are great. 0% beers now hardly taste different to beer. And I know Carlsberg 0.0 is, very similar in taste. Does that open up options for you guys in a way that just working with alcohol doesn't in terms of marketing?
Yeah, yes and no. Of course, we have to follow legislation wherever we are. So in some markets, we have to do everything on a 0.0. Like in Sweden, if we do sports, you have to do it on a 0.0. So it does, but I think it gives us, again, an opportunity to be creative. We recently did, it was actually a year and a half ago, so not recently. Time goes by really fast. It felt recently, but we did something in the month of January, dry January. How can we play into that with Liverpool? And we did something around 0.0, but we made it football relevant because Liverpool were playing Chelsea on January 31st. And we had a great insight that the last 5 games, Liverpool-Chelsea were 0-0.
Oh, yes.
2 of them were finals and they went into penalties, but they ended 0-0. So, of course, we had to jump on that. So, well, the only 0-0 we want is, of course, a Carlsberg 0-0. So using it creatively to really highlight, as you say, the product category has developed so rapidly in the last 10 years, and it's still doing better and better and better. So jumping on those opportunities to talk about our 0.0 and raise that awareness is very important for us. So I would say it opens up new ways, specifically in markets where we are under regulations, but it also gives you another creative leg that you can utilize, which I always like that brief that you have this new leg that you can use. And the good thing is, it's at the end of the day, of course, when we do something on 0.0, that's part of our responsible drinking as well. That whole leg that I talked about earlier, because it's 0.0, you can have that and you can still get yourself behind the wheel and drive yourself home. You can drink it if you are on a health journey. You can drink it if you are pregnant. You have all these opportunities. So it can tap into another audience as well. But it's only driven by the fact that we have great brewmasters who is working on this and who's really working on driving this category forward. Because if you just go back 10 years, alcohol-free beer was not great, but now it is. And you get great brews with 0 alcohol in it.
The innovation, the filtration systems, everything they're doing in that space is really great. And I think this is where it comes to understanding the players, understanding the talent you're working with, because I think from my experience, there are some footballers who are very comfortable in terms of being aligned with beer, and that's fine, right? And there will be some who will be more comfortable with promoting 0-0. And there'll be some, such as Mo Salah, for example, where you probably wouldn't do anything, right? Just out of the religious respect and everything in terms of his beliefs. So it's very interesting. And that's, as you say, having that tight relationship with the club, understanding of the talent becomes so important, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And just, again, we just start from respect.
Yeah.
We start from respect on anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about the multi-year sponsorship you guys recently announced for, and pouring rights as well, for the UEFA men's, women's and futsal national team tournaments, which go up to 2030. Exciting. One, what are the plans? What's the ambitions for that one?
So first of all, very exciting. We obviously have a long-standing relationship with UEFA. So we were in their family from 1988 until 2016. We then decided to take a break. Our business was in a very different state at the time. We had to look at short-term profitability. Now we're in a space where we are looking at long-term growth. So being back with UEFA really just solidifies our football as a pillar for the brand. So we've been in football forever, as I said. We've kept Liverpool, but now adding national team football to it just gives you a bigger audience. It gives you different occasions. And I think first of all, we're so proud to be back. I think that's important. And we're really, really proud because it also shows who we are and that we want to show up in this space.
Yeah.
But we're also very excited to see how we can do this differently than what we've done in the past. So in the past with UEFA, we had the Euros, they were the big ones, the big bang. You go out every 4 years and you go really big. Now with the fact that we have every single national team competition, so the qualifiers, the Nations League, so we're going to Munich and Stuttgart next week for the Nations League finals for men, the futsals, the under-21s, and then of course across both men and women, all of a sudden we have this massive opportunity to, again, tap into these culturally relevant moments that are happening throughout the year. So it doesn't become this every 4 years we're going to go big. No, we actually have something sustainable that we can do as an always-on platform. Then you combine it with Liverpool, you combine it with the other clubs that we had, with the national teams you have, and we're reaching a big audience. And hopefully we can drive that saliency, we can drive that top-of-mind awareness. So at the point of purchase, a fan is going to remember, oh, I've seen Carlsberg. They're part of every football thing that I'm seeing right now. So yeah, I'm going to buy Carlsberg. Of course, that's the end goal.
Yeah. It's a very different sort of partner, obviously, a big federation, big tournaments, perhaps less proximity to talent and community that you get with a club like Liverpool. Will there be a platform that sits across all your football partnerships?
Yeah, so the brand team is obviously building that as we speak. And I think you will see a lot more from Carlsberg and football going forward, because now we just have such a big platform. And I think the combination of having all those different ones is what makes it strong. So you say we can go really deep with Liverpool. We can connect almost one-to-one with the fans. Whereas with the UEFA sponsorship, we talk about the flirts. So those who don't necessarily really care about football, but when their team is playing, when England is playing, they'll sit down and watch it. My mom will watch football when Denmark plays. She doesn't know anything about football, but because there's this community around national team football, and it really drives a lot of national pride. I think when your team is doing well, we certainly saw that in Denmark, like back in '92, of course, when we won the Euro, but also in 2021, where the terrible thing happened to Christian Eriksen, but we went and competed in the semifinals, and the whole nation just came together around that, and everyone was talking about football. So I think it gives you this different audience that's engaged in a very different way. And that's really what we're trying to tap into, is that we have the hardcore fans when we're talking Liverpool, but then you get the flirts as well when we talk about when we're talking national team football.
Yeah. The same here. When England go deep in a tournament, all of a sudden people are coming up to you. They've never spoken to you about football before, and they're asking, "Oh, do you think this player's going to play tonight?" And it pierces the national consciousness like nothing else, really.
Yeah, it does.
And so there's obviously the women's tournaments as well. There's the Euros coming up. I believe your partnership comes in after that, though.
Yes.
Does it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it comes in after.
Basically August 1st with the women's side.
Yeah. I mean, how important is women's football for you guys in terms of your strategy going forward?
Massively important, just as important as the men's. I think that's the very short answer. I think if you're looking at women's football, it is growing at all fronts right now. So you have more players coming in. You have more young girls who want to play football. You have clubs and federation who are investing in women's football. you have partners and sponsors who are investing in football, and you have the big federations, UEFA, investing in women's football. So I think you are on a massive journey right now with women's football. And to be very honest, we're probably a little bit late to the party. We could have done a lot more at a lot earlier stage, but now we're coming in, and we have the women's teams across the clubs and the national teams that we have. So Liverpool, we have the women's as well, the Danish national teams, Irish national team, Canadian national team, Swedish national team, and now with UEFA as well. So it is just as important as the men's. And I think I was recently talking about this to someone else and saying, oh, how can women's football be as good as men's football? And I think, but that's the wrong question to ask. To me, women's football is not a twin of men's football. Women's football is a sibling. So that means we don't treat them equally. We don't treat them the same, but we treat them equally. And I think that's very important that we look at it that way. We're not looking at how can women's be as good as the men's. No, we're looking at how can the women's football be as good as it can be. And that's where we really want to come in and try and help. And again, play a small role in the bigger picture. But I think it takes very specific investments, and you need to invest in it all the way around. So the entire ecosystem has to invest in this. And again, it comes down to, we want more little girls to play football, and we want the big tournaments. We want the media to buy media rights to put money back into women's football. So I think that's really what it should be. It's this ecosystem, and we all have to do the right things to get this moving.
Yeah.
And it's not just with football, right? It's all sports at the moment. Women's sports is surging. You look at the basketball in the US and how that is just skyrocketing at the moment.
Yes. No, this is a massive year for women's sport, because you've got a women's T20 World Cup coming up. You've got a women's rugby World Cup coming up in England. And obviously there's the women's Euros. And as you say, leagues such as the WSL, the Netball Super League, the WNBA are just going from strength to strength by all metrics, commercially, everything. That said, the audience around women's football, for example, is, as you say, you can't have a copy and paste approach to men's and women's football. They're two different products. They're two different audiences, two different vibes, I'd say. One is much more akin to having lager at the heart of its occasion. And I would say that one perhaps is not, because it's perhaps more of a family experience. Would you say that's fair?
I think that's fair, but I do think it's changing. And I think, again, coming back to this innovation in the beer category, that now we have products that is completely compatible with a family outing. So you can have a Carlsberg 0.0 and still be with your family. You can enjoy one beer. I think sometimes we confuse with beer and football that it means we're going to binge drink. That's not the point. The point is you're out on a Saturday afternoon, you're having a beer, you're enjoying the game. So I do think that's changing. And I think our consumer profile changes as well. You see more women coming into the beer category. Yes, it's still small compared to the men's side, but we are seeing more and more women coming in, because we also have products that relate more to women. I think it's growing for sure. Is it where men's is and the proximity to beer and football? No, it's not, but it's growing. And I think, again, we have that responsibility to help it grow. So the more fans we get into it, the more diverse fans we get into women's football. And that's something that will benefit us at the end of the day as well. Because we're looking to grow our audience. We're looking to grow our consumer groups. So if we can do that through women's football, that's obviously a great bonus of being part of this.
Yeah. Related to this, we're working on some thought leadership at MKTG and some data and research where we're almost trying to do some myth busting around women's football. In one sense, right, there are a few things that are coming out of this, which is very interesting. Number one, the female fan of men's football is being forgotten. A lot of brands will say, hey, we want to reach out to women. We want to engage in areas like gender equity and all of these things. So we're going to go into women's football, but perhaps they're not showing up for female fans in men's football, of which there are more. And also, and I don't know if this is the same in Denmark, but in the UK, there's more males that follow the WSL than women. So again, activating in the WSL, you're actually reaching more men ultimately as well.
Yeah, and I think that's why you really need to understand the fans, right? It all comes down to that we started talking about, how you have to listen to the rights holder, you have to understand the fans, because that's the only way you're going to get it right. And I think we always try to think of fans as fans. It's fans. And what they have in common is the love of Liverpool. That's why they are fans. It's because they love Liverpool. They're not fans because they're male or female. They're fans because they love Liverpool. Those are the values we need to tap into. Those are the intrinsic thoughts that these fans have. That's where you tap it into, because they're there because they love Liverpool. That's it. It can be boiled down to that. And how they got into that is then a different route sometimes, but they're all there because they love Liverpool. So that's what we need to speak to. If that makes sense.
Oh, no, it makes sense. It's a good way of thinking about it. And sometimes people segment a bit too much around these things. You are very much admired in this industry. I know from other sponsorship professionals, you've got a great profile. You speak at events as well. And I know you're very passionate about equity and very happy to be a woman in sport and FMCG and in these spaces where perhaps traditionally there hasn't been a lot of female leadership. How important is it for you to connect with other females, encourage other females, and champion gender equality within the industry?
If I could get paid just to do that, that would be my job. I think it is so important for women to help other women. I heard a great quote the other day about sending the ladder down, making sure those who come after you, can step on your shoulders and step on the ladder that you have helped build. I am a steering committee member of Sports Pro New Era, which is about driving female leadership in sports. And I have to say, I think that's the best thing I've done this year is actually be part of that. And I get to mentor 3 amazing women who is trying to break through that glass ceiling and trying to really make their mark on the sponsorship world and the sports world in general. And I think we have a responsibility. I think I've been helped, and I've been helped by men and women. I think that's very important to say as well, that it's not just women supporting women, it's everyone supporting women. And I've had some great mentors that has helped me in my career. And I think it's very important, whatever I can do to give back a little bit of my wisdom. I'm not sure there's a lot in there, but at least I have some experiences. So that's one thing. And then the second thing I think it's really important is to call it out. I think we have to talk about it. We have to say that this world is not necessarily made for women, but we can change it. And we have to be part of driving that change. So I think we have to speak about it. I think we have to call it out when we're seeing things that are not fair. And I can tell you a story. I won't name names, but I was at an agency pitch once, a creative pitch. And before we started talking about the Champions League final in 2018. So it was not long after that. And we talked about Ramos taking down Salah. We talked about Karius maybe doing a drop or two. And at one point, one of the guys in the room stops me and says, I just really want to give you a compliment because you know so much about football for a woman. And I said to him, no, I know a lot about football because that's my job. It's not about me being a woman. It's not about me being male. It's about me being good at my job. And that's why I know a lot about football. So of course I know a lot about football because that's 90% of what I do is around football. So I think calling it out, and to be fair to him, he was mortified. And what he meant as a compliment was not I didn't take that as a compliment at all. I actually took it as an insult because it was like he was surprised that I was good at my job. Yeah. So I think calling it out, but calling it out in a good way. We don't always have to come burning down the house. Sometimes you can call out and say, hey, you know what? That's not okay. And most people, they admit to their mistake right away and they're like, I'm really sorry. And then hopefully the next time they're in that situation, they're going to act differently. So I think calling things out, but calling them out in the right way. It shouldn't be men versus women. That's not what this is about. This is about everyone should be supporting women because, hey, we're awesome. Just as men are awesome. We just need a bit more help right now because this world is not designed for us.
Yeah. I'd love to think that we could get to a time where at times it doesn't feel like a novelty to some people that there are senior female leaders in this industry, because you still go to a lot of, my view is you still go to a lot of sports events, sports conferences. It's all very blokey, It can be very blokey and it's getting better. It's definitely getting better. Every year you see more females there, you see more women in the industry. But I know from colleagues I've spoken to, they can find these places quite intimidating at times, even in 2025, they can find these places just very, very blokey. How do you advise your mentees around that? How do you support them in terms of their networking goals as well?
As I said, I think building allies is crucial in this world. It doesn't matter who you are, you need allies in this world to succeed. So I always tell them, first of all, you have to put yourself at the center. You have to think about yourself. You cannot think about how is this person going to react to it. You have to think about yourself as the beginning, as the starting point. Who you are, what you want to achieve, where you want to go. That is your starting point. And then you have to find the allies who can help you on this journey. And allies can come from weird places. It really can. And it's not always someone who's more senior than you. It's not always someone who works in the same category as you. One of my biggest allies is actually a student assistant that I've had in Carlsberg. And what she does for me, she reminds me that I'm a role model. Every day she reminds me that I'm a role model. And that means I check myself. But the networking thing is so important. This industry is, let's be honest, it's tiny. Everyone knows everyone, and you need that. So one thing is to go look for the help, but also accept the help. And I think sometimes, I can only speak for myself, but I'm sometimes struggling accepting help from others, but it's okay to get help to get ahead. Yeah. It's actually okay. So I think that's a piece of advice that I give to all my mentees is it's okay to take help. You don't have to solve it on your own. Network, get the allies, and then get help. Get help where you can. And I think, at least for myself and also for some of the women I know in the industry, we've struggled a bit with that to say, okay, I'm actually going to raise my hand down and say, I need help. Can someone please help me? Because that can be intimidating as well.
Yeah. Is that also because as a woman in the industry, you almost feel an extra sense of responsibility to show your competence at times?
Yeah, yes and no. I think it comes down to who you are as a person. I used to play professional basketball, so I'm competitive. I want to win. I want to get ahead. So asking for help doesn't come naturally to me at all. So I've had to work on that. I've had to work on raising my hand and say, actually, I can't do this on my own. And my partner, he's actually been great in helping with this because sometimes I don't know how to fix the car and I have to put my hand up and he can fix it in 2 minutes. So why not take that help? But I think there will always be a sense of I have to prove myself. I have to prove myself that I belong here. And I think a lot of us, and that goes again across both men and women, we suffer from imposter syndrome, right? Oh my God. I even had that coming on here to like, why does he want to talk to me? You're saying, oh, I have a great rep in the industry. I'm not sure about that. Like, I'm faking it. No one knows it. I'm just faking it all. So I think we all suffer a little bit from imposter
You've got
syndrome.
to ignore that voice in your head, I think.
Yeah, you have to. 95% of the times, I'm really good at ignoring that. But I think we all tend to sometimes we get insecure about what we know and who we are and what we can do. And it takes work to be better at silencing that voice and saying, I'm not going to listen to you because I actually can do my work. So I think there's something in that. And then I think and then I had that from sports about celebrating your wins as well. Celebrating when you do good. Celebrating when you have done something amazing or you've had a win. Celebrate it. I'm not saying we should shout everything from the rooftops, but you have to celebrate it. Even if it's internally, just do a high five. That was good today. You have to celebrate that because that builds your confidence as well. And a lot of this comes down to your confidence in yourself and who you are. And most of the times we all devalue our own competence compared to what others do.
Yeah. And at the same time, don't be too discouraged when something doesn't work, right? You mentioned earlier, Louise, that you've taken ideas to the club before and it hasn't worked. And that's totally fine, right?
Yeah, and I think learn from the losses and move on. And sometimes, killing your darlings is really important, and you can do that and not spend too much time grieving it. You have to move on and you learn something. So yeah, I make mistakes every single day. Every single day I make mistakes, big or small, but I move on. I pick myself up and I move on. And I think that's important. That's something I'm really trying to install in the team as well. If we want to be a team that makes quick decisions and we try to be effective, sometimes we're going to make a mistake, but that's okay. We'll fix it.
Yeah. Brilliant. Look, I love all the advice. I think it's been amazing speaking to you today, Louise. You are very much worthy of being on this podcast. So, leave the imposter syndrome behind for sure.
No, I'll try.
My final question to you, Louise, there are people out there I know who will look at your job title, what you do, the fact you have such a great relationship with the greatest football club on the planet, in my view, and you work with such a cool brand, and you're at the center of some really great, memorable activations. People must say to you all the time, "I'd love to do that." You're so lucky, maybe. What an amazing job you have. I mean, what's your advice for people? A lot of young people listen to this podcast because they're interested in going into sports marketing, sponsorship, and there'll be people out there who are listening because they're Liverpool fans as well. If they're interested in going into this world, what would be your kind of nuggets of advice?
Well, I think I have to start with actually how I got into this job, because I think that's a good way. So I had played basketball in the States. I came back and I had to start another education because I felt I'm not good enough to play basketball my entire life. So I'm going to have to actually get a real job. And I went to Copenhagen Business School. We had a guest lecture and it was someone who worked for the Carlsberg sponsorship team. And afterwards I went up to him and said, I want to work for you. And he laughed in my face and said, that's great, but I don't have a job for you. 4 months later, all of a sudden there was an opening in Carlsberg in group HR as a student assistant. And I thought, you know what, let me get my foot in the door. Let me try and find a way in to see if I can end up where I want to end up. I got the job, and one of my roles was to actually put on all new job postings online. Lo and behold, 6 months later, there's a job posting for a project coordinator at the Euros in 2008 in the sponsorship team. And I went to my boss at the time. I said, I really want to get this. Can I apply for that? He said, sure, but just know it's only 3 months. It's a 3-month contract. We can't hold your role here for us. And I took a chance and I got the role in the sponsorship team. Almost 18 years later, here I am. Worked my way hard. I've worked really hard. I have also never been afraid of taking a detour. So doing things that were probably not what I wanted to do, but I knew that it would help me get to where I am today. So I think sometimes we are obsessed with taking the straight line to exactly the goal. This is where I want to go. It's okay to take a detour. It's okay to do something that you didn't think you were going to do, because you're all gonna put experience back into your backpack and bring that forward. So I think, one, be brave. I can't say that enough. Be brave. Go for what you want. If you don't get it the first time, find another way in. There is always a way in. And the best piece of advice I got for the guy who hired me was, there's always room for good people. Always. So I think I've really kept that with me, that, okay, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to go in a different way, because at the end of the day, I know I'm a good person. I'm going to get a space somewhere. So Be brave, and just know that there's always room for good people, and don't be afraid to take a detour.
Amazing. I think that's a perfect place to end it, Louise. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. It was great to be here.
Great. And I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did.
I did. And I mean, I got to look at a very beautiful Liverpool top for now. That was great.
Yeah, there's about 5 or 6 of these, all with Carlsbergs on. So I was, my son helped me choose the one to wear today. But yeah.
He chose wisely. Well done.
Thanks, Louise.